Welcome to a brand new episode of the Bold Take Podcast. I'm Austin Wader. That is Austin Hill. We're not going to talk about what occurred with that. We're going to save that for later on in the show about a certain team. But welcome to the NFL episode of the Bold Take Podcast. We are officially at the halfway point of the NFL season. Week 9 coming up this weekend. Austin, we're halfway home here.
Yeah, I'm a lot happier at this point in the NFL season than I've been in years past. It's a
Same
different.
here. Same here. Both are doing pretty solid to say the least. But before anything else, go watch our college football episode. Came out yesterday. We talk obviously about A&M and their miracle comeback against LSU and Marcel Reed. We also give our predictions, what we think the first college football playoff predictions are going to look like. Those rankings come out Tuesday, November 5th. Again, the most important polls that you will see on November 5th that day. So definitely, and of course, team and player of the week, our game picks, bet of the week. I feel really good about my bets of the week. I'll just go ahead and spoil that. Bets of the week. So find out what they are in that episode. But NFL episode here in Austin, as always, we started with our biggest winners and losers from the past week in the NFL. What about your biggest winner? I'm going to throw you a curveball here first.
Biggest winner. Oh, there's a lot of tough ones to think about. I think certainly the Commanders are a team that jumps out to mind, but I'm not going to say the Commanders because that hurts a little too much, and it's a little too real. But I'm going to say the Rams. I know that was the Thursday night game, and we may have touched on it a little bit. But again, I think this has just been really impressive the way they've kind of been able to turn the season around, getting everybody healthy and put themselves right back in not just the playoff conversation, but the winning their division conversation.
Yeah, for me, I could go with a very simple one in Atlanta. I'll take the Arizona Cardinals, actually. Tua came back on the road. My bet of the week did not hit. Kyler actually won back-to-back games. You are welcome, Kyler, for breaking that for you. You are welcome. But anyway, Cardinals looked really good, had a great comeback late in that game, and hey, tied for first in the NFC West. We're going to talk about that a little bit later, but a great win for them there. Now, what about your biggest loser? I think I know where you might be going with this. I think I know.
I think, unfortunately, I'm going to say the Chicago Bears are my biggest loser for the week. If you know, you know. I'll save the actual details for when we actually talk about the game. But that's who I pick as my biggest loser. And if you know what happened and you don't need our recap, then I think you'd agree with me. And that's not to say that I'm disappointed in the way that the Bears played overall, but it certainly was a gut punch, to say the least. Again, I'll get into it a little bit later.
Yeah, we'll get into it a little bit later. For me, the biggest loser, I think it's got to be the Tennessee Titans. I mean, not only did you lose to the Lions 52-14, it's the way you lost. Your special teams couldn't stop anybody. Jared Goff literally only threw for 85 yards, and they only threw for 94 yards total, only 164 yards. You outgained them in total yards, but you got your butt whooped 52-14. Falling to 1-6. I don't know if Brian Callahan's one to keep an eye on for being a first year coach that's fired. Um, there might be a conversation there soon if things don't turn around, especially if Will Levis doesn't get better. You wonder if you tank it for some of the quarterbacks that are expected to be the top of this NFL draft class. But yeah, that's my biggest loser. So first things first, we're going to talk about some of the biggest games from this weekend in the NFL. And let's start, Austin, with some of the shockers in the noon slate. And the first one, Atlanta taking advantage of their trip to Tampa Bay, going down and winning there 31-26. Now in full control of first place in the NFC South, Austin. We talked about it last week. If Atlanta wanted to strike and take control of this division, this was the time to do it. And they really did it in dominant fashion. It ended with a 5-point game, but they were in control of that game throughout the entire time.
Yeah, and like we said, this is their opportunity. You got Tampa Bay banged up right now. The Saints are all out of whack, and obviously the Panthers were never in this conversation to begin with. Um, they needed this win, and they need to come out and take advantage and win some games and string them together and win the division. And they took a very big first step this past weekend.
They definitely did. Full control there. Tampa 4-4. Would say it gets easier. You got the Kansas City Chiefs on Monday Night Football there. That'll be a tough one. The next game I want to talk about, and this is one that does put a smile on my face. The Cleveland Browns, led by Jameis Winston, pull off the, I will think the safe to say, the upset of the season so far, taking down the Baltimore Ravens, a team that had won 5 in a row, had looked so dominant against many elite teams. They go into Cleveland, and Jameis Winston and the Browns pull off an all-time shocker. Usually, I root for the Browns to not have any success. You know, I am a Browns hater for what they did in 2020, and I will never forgive them for that still. But this does put a smile on my face for reasons due to the fact that this now puts the Steelers in sole possession of first place entering the bye week. But for the Ravens, I mean, the simple thing is Derrick Henry only having 11 carries in the game, getting him only 11 touches in the game. I don't know what went wrong there, given the Ravens' offense.
Yeah, they just seemed out of sorts, and really, I think it's a testament to how much morale and team chemistry and just a want to be on the field can affect a team's performance between the first however many weeks of the season into this week. When you have a quarterback who wants to be on the field and wants to be playing football, it's strange and bizarre exactly how much that can change a football game. And the Cleveland Browns learned that this weekend. Look, obviously, Deshaun Watson suffered the season-ending injury. In Jameis Winston's first game out, they come and have this huge upset. I just think it's no question that when you have a guy who maybe you can maybe argue right now is more talented than Deshaun Watson sitting on the bench, and you could definitely argue wants it more than Deshaun Watson, uh, comes out there and leads this team. I think it just goes to justify how important it is to have that want and that drive, especially from your quarterback.
Yeah, it truly does. But for the Browns, this really doesn't do a whole lot. It's just something to boost morale for the Ravens. Now you're 5-3. I mean, you would look dominant against, the Cowboys, Bills, Bengals, Commanders, Buccaneers. You were dominating everyone. I mean, it just amazes me that they just went away from getting Derrick Henry the football. I know they kind of fell behind at a point in the second half, but to me, you ride with Derrick Henry and that Lamar Jackson run game. And I know Lamar Jackson is dealing with some knee injuries currently. I mean, to me, you get Derrick Henry the ball and you let him run free. I think you win that game outright. But nonetheless, Steelers, first place in the AFC North entering the bye week. You love to see it. You love to see it. Next game we're going to talk about is the Philadelphia Eagles dominating the Cincinnati Bengals 37-17. This is a game that we kind of felt, is this where Cincinnati starts to get its groove back? They beat two bad teams. Can they continue it into Philly? And in the first half, it truly looked like it was a competitive game back and forth. But in the second half, Saquon Barkley wore down the Bengals defense, and the Eagles defense, which surprised me the most, stood up really strong in that second half to help the team pull away in the Eagles. A very impressive 5-2, even though we really don't feel like they're a 5-2 team.
Yeah, this is a big win, and look, even though the Bengals haven't had their best season this year, this is always going to be a big win for anybody playing the Bengals with this level of talent that they have, especially on offense. So a great win for the Eagles, and they've really started to put together and maybe starting to look impressive, and maybe trying to find their way back to what they looked like at the high points of last season. But with the Bengals, it's just a wonder what's going wrong there. It just seems like I don't know. I don't have the words for it.
I have
Uh,
the words. I have the words.
I'd love to hear it.
Certain man that has been, I've been his biggest fan since the
Yeah,
first year you were on this podcast. Um, Listen, they always start slow under him as the head coach, and then now without Joe Mixon, the big thing to me is they're missing Joe Mixon tremendously. On when you look at overall, Joe Mixon brought so much to that team that I don't think people realize. In that defense, I mean, that defense has just gotten worse every single year since they made that Super Bowl run. Call that mismanagement, if you will, by a head coach and a GM. So that is my opinion on the situation. But I am also completely biased in my hatred for Zach Taylor, though. So
I thought it was funny that you just weren't saying his name like he was Voldemort almost the whole time until the very end.
Yeah, it's such a haunting name
Yeah.
considering what happened the last time I said that he was going to get fired. It just you wonder if you'll say the name. But no, I mean I have to. They're 3-5. They still got to play the Ravens. Not this week, not this Sunday, but next Thursday. So I mean they're going to need to buckle up if they want to get some wins and get back in the playoff race here. Our next one, Buffalo going to Seattle, dominating the Seahawks 31-10. And dare I say, as great as the Bills look, this is probably the most balanced game we have seen from the Buffalo Bills this year. Wire to wire domination. I don't think there's anything else that needs to be said there. They just completely destroy the Seattle Seahawks in this game.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy how on we were about the Seattle team. I know that we rattled on it kind of the last couple weeks, but even going as far into this week, look, they're just not the team that they looked like at the beginning of the season, but that definitely had a ton to do with the level of competition they played at the beginning of the year. And look, obviously it's not like college football. You don't just get to decide who you play, and make your own schedule, but it is it's an unfortunate shake that they just didn't have any true tests, and now that the tests are coming, they're flunking.
I mean, talk about their next three games, all against division opponents. So they're going to be due if they want a chance to win this division, which they're still tied for first.
Yeah,
They're going to need to get some wins in those games. All right, let's get to the game. We all know what we're talking about here. Washington defeating Chicago 18-15. In case you lived under a rock,
yeah.
I'll explain what happened on the final play. Chicago scores a touchdown to go up with 20 seconds left, 15 seconds, somewhere along those lines, I think. Yeah.
I think it was 15.
But yeah, about 15. But anyway, they score. Everyone's like, the game's over. They got it. They hit a quick 15-yard completion and then do a Hail Mary where the pass gets tipped up in the air and caught by Washington in the end zone to win the game. And Washington now 6-2. The Bears fall to 4-3. There are more about a certain situation, but you have the floor, Austin, on this game. I didn't say a word to you on Sunday after this happened just for space reasons. If it was me, I would have wanted you to do the same to me.
So fortunately, my brother had come over to the house right at the end of this game when I was watching the last drive. So to show a little bit of restraint, I didn't throw a fit and destroy my living room in the way that I wanted to. I was just like, I said a few choice words and I turned the game off and we went and did something else. So that was something that helped me get through. Usually those first couple hours after a loss like that, like the Notre Dame Northern Illinois game, the rest of the day I was mad. I was furious. My dad called me like 3 hours later and he hadn't even watched the game. And he was asking me, if I was gonna be over for dinner. And I was like, yeah, I'll be over there. And he's like, is something wrong? And I was like, yeah, Notre Dame lost. I'm still mad. So I usually those first few hours after something like that, I'm just furious. But fortunately, I had something to distract my mind, and just get me and pretty much immediately out of the situation. But look, Washington was the better team the entire game. I think that that's something that is being forgotten, and it's why I think is another reason this Hail Mary is a little bit easier to swallow. Not that we didn't play good and we did not deserve to win. That's not what I'm saying, but they were the better team in this game. And our team really didn't come alive till the end. And sure, there's you still got to find a way to win that game when you score the easy touchdown at the end of the game. But I didn't watch a lot of this game. For some reason, CBS decided that people in our region want to watch Chiefs and Raiders. So I just didn't even want to alternatively stream it. I was so furious. Then I was checking. I was like, you know what? I'll just check the box score every once in a while, and then if the game starts to get close late, I'll watch it. I have this fear of being a curse watching the Bears game. Sometimes I feel like I watch the Bears play, and they lose, which may or may not be true. Um, so I was like, maybe I'll watch it when it gets if it's still close late. I saw we weren't playing well, and I'd pretty much written the game off. But then I happened to check right before that final drive, our final offensive drive, And I was like, oh, we got the ball and we have a chance. Turn it on. Go down the field, score the touchdown. I saw some complaints about the clock management. I don't know. You're losing the game and it's not a field goal to tie or field goal to win situation. Score the touchdown as fast as you can. Um, I'm sorry. Look, Eberflus has gotten a lot of garbage in his tenure as the Bears head coach, and I think that he's done some things to mismanage. He loves that challenge flag a little too much. He's not super great at calling timeouts. But what do you want the guy to do? You're inside 30 seconds, and you have the football on the goal line. You have to put the ball in, or you lose. And the longer you take to put the ball in, the more chances they get to send somebody in and stop it. I just so I don't agree with that logic. Um, but when they got the ball back, I didn't hate Eberflus's defense that he called at the end of the game, except when he called prevent on the last play before the Hail Mary. Um, they just dropped everybody with like 9 seconds on the clock and gave up a 12-yard pass to Terry McLaurin. Makes the Hail Mary a lot easier. Didn't love that. Um, but it comes down to a Hail Mary. Look, just a freak play. That's exactly how you want the Hail Mary to go. You want it to be tipped. You want that guy in the back to be able to catch the football. Went to textbook play. Sure, when I saw the clip of Tyreek Stevenson the very first time running down the field celebrating, look, no matter what, it's not a good look. Definitely should have been playing. But what do you want the guy to do? He still made up his ground. He still ran over, and he's the guy that tried to swat the ball down. His hand touched the ball. What do you want him to do? It's not a good look, and he should have been playing defense. But he tried to swat the ball down, and he just caught the wrong part of the ball. It's a great play for Washington. I'm not mad. We fought hard. We played well. We should have won the game. But look, Hail Marys happen, and we're cursed. I'm cursed. It just happens sometimes. You got to live with it. You got to learn with it. But this is a team that showed its resilience in the fourth quarter. Again, it's something I've been so impressed with Caleb Williams is no matter how good of a night he's having on the stat sheet, which wasn't the prettiest night throwing the football, they still drove the field. They still got in. They scored. The offense did everything they can. And this fantastic defense is not going to make mistakes like that every single week.
Listen, I mean the Hail Mary and the Stevenson celebrating everything. I mean everyone's talked about that enough. I don't think more people are talking about what happened before that on the last Bears drive. You're about to go in and score from the 2 yard line. Who do you give the football to? You've got multiple great running backs. You can do a QB sneak. No, let's give it to our freaking offensive lineman on the goal line. Listen, I don't care if they say that that play was designed and they knew it. In that situation, in a close game, you're running with the running back. If to me, if it's a blowout or you're up by 10, 15 points, sure. I got no issue with you trying to have fun and get no lineman a touchdown. This, when the game's on the line in a close game like this, it's absolutely terrible. It is terrible by Shane Waldron. Terrible. I don't care. Even if they would have scored, I wouldn't have really been impressed by it. I was like, just give it to your running back. Fortunately, he learned a drive later and got him into the end zone by giving it to the running back. What a concept, I tell you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, overall in the game, I'm with you. The Commanders were the better team. They just didn't finish drives in the red zone. That's the only thing. They were getting down the field easily on the Bears, and then when they got in the red zone, the drives kept on stalling out, and then the Bears got 2 touchdowns late. And the Stevenson thing about me, he did make the play on the ball. I just wonder if he had stayed celebrating. He's the one that tipped it up. It looked like if he stays celebrating, does that ball not get tipped in the air? Is a question I'm wondering.
That's fair. Maybe the criticism shouldn't be he shouldn't have been celebrating. Maybe it should be he should have celebrated a lot more. Maybe he should have
Right, right.
taken his shoulder pads and his helmet off and just really sold it. Well, get off the field first. You don't want the 15-yard penalty.
Yeah, yeah.
But maybe you should have really just gone all out with it. But like I said, I mean, people are like, "Oh, he's the guy that tipped up the ball." Yeah, what do you want him to do? That's his job, is to tip the ball. It took a bad bounce. He hit the ball wrong. I think all things considered, it's a bad look, and you shouldn't have been doing it. But he went over and he made the play he was supposed to make, and the ball just didn't take the right bounce.
Yeah.
Tough.
Nonetheless, Commanders 6-2, Bears 4-3. Steelers Commanders next Sunday is going to be a big one for both sides in that game. The last game we are going to talk about from Sunday, Niners taking care of the Dallas Cowboys 30-24. We talked about this game and who was the more desperate team. In the first half, Dallas looked like they were playing solid defensively. And then the third quarter, it was all 49ers in that third quarter. And then the fourth quarter, Dallas tried to make it interesting, but they fell behind too much and didn't have enough time to get back in that game. And listen, for the Cowboys, now you're sitting there 3-4. You got to wonder what it's going to be like in the head of Jerry Jones coming up on that trade deadline, also November 5th. The second most important thing behind the college football playoff polls for
Yep.
that day. Um, but yeah, you look at that, the 3-4 loss, you wonder what they could do at the trade deadline. Because to me, the problem with Dallas, there is no one that helps this offense besides CeeDee Lamb. There is no one there to save this offense besides CeeDee Lamb. And that's what's hurt them offensively. Their defense, they're dealing with injuries. That's the thing that when they get 100% healthy, that defense will be better. Micah Parsons still dealing with injuries. Demarcus Lawrence, I mean, you name it. But they got to try to find another weapon. And there's been so many receivers already traded before the deadline. I feel like there's destined to be another one. Dallas needs to go out and get some more help for their wide receiver core, in my opinion, if they want any chance of having success this year.
Yeah, I'll go with a little bit of the alternative look and look at the 49ers here. But yeah, I agree. The Cowboys, they didn't look great, and they need an upgrade on offense if this team is really looking to go all in with these big contracts. All in for Jerry Jones, not all in for a competitive football team.
Right,
Um,
right, right.
but looking at the 49ers, kind of the way this game slipped away in the fourth quarter, to me, this team, I think, could use an addition in the wide receiver room. Look, you've got Deebo Samuel, who's been up and down with injuries. Ayuk's done for the year. Juwan Jennings dealing with injury. Ricky Pershaw, I think he's going to be good once he gets healthy. But look, getting shot is not a thing you're just going to, come in and be a freak at. He's still kind of adjusting and getting his feet under him. Not to mention, he's a rookie NFL wide receiver as well. Um, so he's still figuring things out. I think this team could use another wide receiver because look, this offense faltered. You had drops, you had them getting stalled in the run game. Look, I think eventually, hopefully, Christian McCaffrey will be back. So you'll be able to kind of stabilize this run game a little bit more and have more efficient runs. But when it comes to those third downs in the fourth quarter, third and mediums, third and longs to try and keep drives alive, and they're going to smother George Kittle, you need another wide receiver, especially if Debo's going to keep having up and down injury bouts right now. You need somebody who's going to be consistent, who you can trust to get open. I don't exactly know who I'd pin them for right now, but I think that an addition at wide receiver would be massive, helping the 49ers. Otherwise, I just don't know how many games this team's going to be able to win down the stretch.
Yeah, that's a big question mark there. I will say, just totally talking about receivers at the trade deadline, I'm not saying this has anything to do with that. DK Metcalf was ruled out this week for the Seahawks. So you wonder, is he out with injury? Are they working on something here at the deadline? He's one of the top ones that's been talked about. Him,
That's
Mike
true.
Williams. Trying to think if there's anyone else. Well, there was Christian Kirk, who people were talking about before he suffered an unfortunate season-ending injury. Uh, for the Niners, I would probably say, obviously, Mike Williams probably be a good one. Someone for Brock Purdy who he could throw with one-on-one coverage and get a good chance coming down with the ball. We've seen Mike Williams do that his time at Clemson when he was there and during his NFL career whenever he was given the chance in LA.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, it's a shame that him and Keenan Allen as that 1-2 punch won like 8 games tops in a season.
Yeah. Man, imagine what they were doing if they were still there with Harbaugh, though.
Yeah,
I mean, I mean, Herbert, listen, Herbert and Lad McConkey are doing good, but besides that, there's really no other major receivers. Quentin Johnson had a good, like a couple weeks ago, he was good. They really haven't thrown him the ball much since then. But now let's get to something we hinted at in our college football episode yesterday. I gave you homework, Austin, on the night to rank your top five teams in the NFL. That's coming up on the halfway point of the season. Austin, from 5 to 1, give me your top five teams in the NFL currently.
From 5 to 1, pressing me like this. At number 5, I'm gonna go with maybe a little bit of a bold one, but I'm gonna go with the Houston Texans. This team, had we done this yesterday, the Houston Texans probably would have been a little bit higher. But they lost to the Jets, which I don't love seeing, and that hurts. It seems like this team makes the little bitty mistakes right now that are kind of getting in their way. And not having Stephon Diggs obviously is certainly hurting. Um, then I would go with the Philadelphia Eagles at number 4. I like the way this team's starting to put things together. I really liking everything about this team right now. I feel like they're coming together at the right time. Kind of some of the stuff I said already. At number 3, I like the Detroit Lions here. This is a very talented team, and they've got all the tricks in the book. It seems like they've got everything going right now. Dan Campbell's got the team playing at 1,000%, and they're just having fun with it. So much fun to see. At number 2, even with the loss last week, I'm going to go with the Baltimore Ravens. I like the way this team runs the football. The offense and defense look virtually unstoppable. It was a fluke last week. It's obviously a mistake they need to clean up, but this team is impossible to stop. And at number 1, I think this is maybe the only obvious pick in these top 5. It's got to be the Kansas City Chiefs, right? They're no matter what happens, whether they're winning the whole time, losing the whole time, they've won every game. They find a way to get it done. They're not doing it pretty, but they're winning every game, and that's all that matters. They don't ask you how you want them. So I think that you got to give the Kansas City Chiefs their due and say right now they're the top team. They just look impossible to beat. Like we talked about last week, if they're winning now, how can you beat this team when they start to get into a groove?
Yeah, not to mention Isaiah Pacheco coming back at some point. Mahomes gets better as you get closer to the playoffs. I mean, it just seems like things are only going to go up for them. So some similarities and some differences in our top five here. So my number 5 team, and this is not biased at all whenever I say this, is the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. Listen, I think this defense alone, with the ability to actually have an offense that can be balanced, that can throw it down the field with a great running game, and the defense playing the way it is, I think this makes this team top 5 caliber. Now, will they show top 5 caliber every single week? No, I don't think so. We saw that on Monday night against the Giants. I mean, that game was way closer than it needed to be. But they have the elite talent. I think that makes them a top 5 team. Number 4 here, this is an interesting one. I like the Green Bay Packers here at number 4. This is a bold one. I think Green Bay, despite all the injuries to Jordan Love to start this year, despite several new pieces going around, they are 6-2, and they are only going to get more healthy, similar to the Chiefs. They're going to get healthier as the season goes along. They have looked good and won great in big games. When Jordan Love's been healthy, he's been good. Josh Jacobs has been a great piece. Xavier McKinney has been phenomenal in the secondary for the Green Bay Packers. Do defense coordinator making things look good there. I think they have to be a top 5 team. Number 3, this is where I got the Buffalo Bills. I think Buffalo, and listen, I will be one of the ones who did not have Buffalo making the playoffs at the start of the year. I was one of those people. But Josh Allen has been incredible. This offense has been way more balanced this year than I anticipated it looking. James Cook looks good. They're getting the ball to all different kinds of wide receivers. They now pick up Amari Cooper, who's pretty much an automatic, you want to get a first down, look to Amari Cooper kind of guy. Along with the defense playing a lot better than I thought it was going to be with all the pieces moving around the secondary. They look really good. So that leaves two teams with me: the Detroit Lions and the Kansas City Chiefs. With the Kansas City Chiefs at number two.
Okay.
And listen to me on this. I know I agree. Listen, they have won ugly, but they have won every single game. You got to give them credit for that. Um, but I look at who do I think the best overall team is here. And the best overall team to me between the Chiefs and the Lions, if they were to play right now, I would give the edge to the Detroit Lions
That's fair.
because they have the elite running game. If they need to win with the run game, they can do that. If they need to win with Jared Goff passing the ball, they can do that. If they need to win with special teams, they can do that. They can win in all sorts of different ways. The Chiefs, listen, they have won ugly, and don't get me wrong, I think that they are number two and right probably could be 1A and 1B with these two teams. Um, but just in my opinion, I think the Lions are the best team in football right now. No bias at all. No bias.
Absolutely zero.
Yeah, absolutely zero, especially with putting the Steelers at number five. Absolutely no bias at all. But you hinted at it. Let's talk about it from last night, Halloween night. The major upset that happened, the Jets taking down the Texans 21-13. This was a shocker. No, nothing else to say, but this was a shocker on that. The problem to me with Houston and why I didn't put them in my top five solely because their offensive line has been terrible this season. The offensive line is going to get CJ Stroud hurt. It got him hurt last night for a little bit. Um, I would imagine they would try to maybe make a move or two at the deadline to maybe get more O line help if they can. Um, but that O line is going to cost them a chance at being one of the elite teams in the NFL this year. And for the Jets, I mean, they're dead. They're like 98% dead. They got like a 2%. They're hanging on by a thread. They
Yeah.
really can't afford to lose another game for a while if they want any chance of doing anything this year. So they're not dead yet, but they're pretty close. But the Texans, that O line's got to be way better.
Yeah, I agree. That's this game is a this can't happen kind of game for the Houston Texans. This is a team that's really done everything right over the last 2 years, and putting together kind of this super quick rebuild. Can you even? Well, I guess you can't call it a rebuild because they were rebuilding before this. But just kind of where they snapped all these pieces together, and all of a sudden it's this great team. But yeah, this week, what happened on Thursday just cannot keep happening for this team. They're too good for it to happen. And like you said, you got to protect CJ Stroud better. And I would think that coming into the trade deadline, you see your obvious big weakness. Look, they don't really have a lot of other spots that need to be filled. So I would think that would make it easier at the trade deadline to say, hey, let's sacrifice maybe a couple picks, maybe some lower tier players, and upgrade this offensive line a little bit.
Yeah, I'm with them. I mean, sacked 8 times last night. I mean, was a rough night. Joe Mixon has been incredible, like you mentioned. Maybe they're a dark horse and they think that another wide receiver could help them with Stephon Diggs being out for the year. Like I said, the defense I think is doing really good. The only problem is the offensive line, and that's the thing that's going to cost them in some games later on down the road. But now let us get into some game picks for this week in the NFL. We got a couple of good matchups here, Austin, and let's start with a big one in the noon slate. 5-3 Denver Broncos taking on the 5-3 Baltimore Ravens here. Broncos 5-3. Now, whether that's a good 5-3 is up for debate. I think it's safe to say.
Yeah.
The Ravens, they're 5-3, had looked dominant the past 5 weeks, and then they lose a shocker to Jameis Winston and the Browns last week. Um, this is going to be an interesting game. I really don't know what to expect, especially given what Baltimore did last week. But which way are you leaning on this one?
Oh, I think just coming out of the gates, even though they're 5-3, I think the Broncos probably not going to win this game. I think there's still some growing for this team to do. I think this is going to be kind of a wake up game for Baltimore, and it needs to be. This is a game where they say, "Hey, let's get back to it," and I think they're going to run the ball and run the ball a lot and win this game big time.
Yeah. Listen, as much as I say that, and as much as I will root for the Broncos in this game, the Baltimore Ravens, I think, are just going to dominate them. I think the defense of the Broncos can keep it close early on, but that offense, I don't think is going to be able to keep up. So I like the Ravens to win that game as well. Our next game we're going to talk about here, noon slate, a big one. Cowboys and Falcons. Falcons coming off the big win last week, full control of the NFC South. The Cowboys, Dak said it himself this week. He said this week is 100% a must win for the team. This will be at noon. Atlanta looking to extend their lead in the division. Which way are you leaning on this one?
I think I'm leaning Atlanta all the way. I know there's urgency from the Cowboys. I'm just not convinced till I see this team get something done. The Falcons are rolling. They should use this as, again, an opportunity to continue to try and extend this lead in the division and win it. I just don't like the Cowboys in this game. Give me the Falcons.
Yeah. I was originally going to pick the Cowboys in this game. I was originally going to until I learned that Micah Parsons is out again with injury. I thought he would be returning this week. Turns out I was wrong there. Uh, but I think him missing is going to hurt their chances. I think Dak and the offense can keep up with Kirk if it's a high scoring affair. But if it comes down to a defense at the end that I got to trust, the elite defense of the Atlanta Falcons is what I trust more. So I'll pick Atlanta in this game. Now to the 3 o'clock slate, and we got a couple of good games in this. This is honestly a phenomenal 3 o'clock slate with games starting at CBS at 3:05. The 4-3 Bears, 4-4 Cardinals in Arizona. This is a big one for both teams. Looking to both get above 500, stay in that wild card race in the NFC. This is a massive one. The Bears, how are they going to respond after last week? The Cardinals, back-to-back wins over the past 2 weeks. Can they make it 3 in a row against this Bears team, Austin? I think I know which way you're leaning, but why do you think the way you're thinking?
I'm gonna go with the Bears here. Look, obviously, I think it's a recovery week. It's a bounce back week. And look, I'm gonna put it like this: I think the Bears are the better team on paper. Uh, Now that has not stopped the Cardinals from doing anything this season, but I think we come out with a better scheme. I think the thing that's going to set us apart is the offensive line in Arizona is just not that great, minus Paris Johnson. Uh, and so I think that it is going to be Montez Sweat, Austin Booker, and everybody else getting home, DeMarcus Walker, and making a difference. And then the secondary will be able to step up and limit the effectiveness of the pass game. I think the defense is going to come in and dominate and shut down this offense. And that's going to allow Caleb Williams to feel a little bit less pressure and run the show on offense.
Yeah, I think I'm expecting a close game. If this was in Chicago, I would pick the Bears to win in a blowout. I don't think this game would be close. But with it being in Arizona, I think it'll be a close game down to the end. But similar to what I talked about with the Atlanta Dallas game, it comes down to me to which defense do I trust more. And no disrespect to the Cardinals defense, who has played solid at points this year. I lean more towards that Chicago Bears defense if I got to rely on a defense in this game. So I'm going to roll with the Bears. Next one, big one also for NFC West teams. 3-4 Rams, 4-4 Seahawks. Rams trying to keep up with everyone else in that division. Puka Nakua suffered a knee injury. I'm told he is questionable for this game. And we saw the difference when if he plays, this offense is a lot better. He's questionable for Sunday in Seattle. Who do you got in this NFC West battle?
I'm going to make it simple. Team that's real hot right now versus team that's real cold right now. I'm not going to overthink this one. I think I'm going to go with the Rams.
Yeah, I mean that was my thinking. Simple, don't overthink it. It's going to be the Rams, I think. I think with Cooper Kupp being back, even if Puka Nakua does not play, I think that will help them. I think that's what the Rams get. And I think they play more urgency knowing that if they win, despite their really terrible start to the season with all the injuries, they are still very much alive in this division race. And then our final pick, the game of the weekend. 6-1 Detroit Lions heading to Lambeau Field to take on the 6-2 Green Bay Packers. Austin, a massive one in the NFC North here. Seeing who takes control of this division. We thought it was going to be Minnesota with their 5-0 start, but they've lost 2 in a row. These two teams have emerged near the top. First place in the division on the line. What's going down at Lambeau Field this Sunday afternoon?
Ooh, this is going to be tough. I think I'm going to give it to. I don't like doing this. I'm going to give it to the Packers in a stoner. I think this is going to be a close game, but I think playing at Lambeau is going to give the Packers that extra edge. They find a way to win those divisional games at home, no matter who they're playing.
Yeah. Oh, Dan Campbell's coach for the Lions? Yeah, I don't bet against him. Yeah, no, I don't bet against Dan Campbell. It's one of my few rules. I don't bet against Gardner Minshew. I don't bet against Dan Campbell, and I don't bet against Mike Tomlin when he needs to get to a record above 500 on the season. Those are three things you don't bet against. So I'm not going to bet against Dan Campbell. I'm going to take the Lions to win this game. And I know what you're going to ask. Sunday night football, Monday night football. Really not the most elite games in the world. I think Tampa and Kansas City would be a bigger deal if the Chris Godwin and Mike Evans were playing. But I do think Chiefs are confidently now. Vikings and Colts is interesting, giving especially the elite Joe Flacco making his first start of what I'm supposedly, from what I hear, and he will be the full-time starter the rest of the season.
Wow.
So, so yeah, it'll be interesting to see what goes on that one. But those are our 5 game picks. Let's wrap this up with our bet of the week. Bet of the week here, Austin. I will be honest with you. I failed last week. If I am correct, you did not win, did you?
I did, though. I believe the Broncos covered. Was the Broncos covering the spread?
Yes, yes, they did. They covered by 1 point for you. By 1 point.
Hey, that's
Yep.
all we need is a cover. That's
Yep.
all I ask
It
for.
doesn't matter how you get that cover. But nonetheless, week 9, NFL, what do you got?
Well, in shades of what I did last week, I'm going to go with another one because we're seeing some bigger spreads in the NFL than I'm used to seeing right now. But I'm going to take in prime time. I think this is just such an easy take all your money and throw it on this kind of bet. I like the Chiefs -9 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Like you said, if Tampa Bay was healthy, this would be a fantastic, awesome Monday night football game. But without it, we've definitely seen that Baker Mayfield's kind of struggled, and that's obvious when you don't have two all-pro caliber wide receivers playing out there. It gets the job gets a little bit tougher. So I think Kansas City, with the way their defense has been playing this year, they're going to be able to shut down that offense and make some magic happen.
All right. So listen, no Steelers this week. They're on a bye week, so no Steelers under. I will say this, Austin, we have a new contender for easiest under bet with the Pittsburgh Steelers. We have a new contender this.
Wow.
That is the Los Angeles Chargers. A Chargers game, no Chargers game this season has scored over 40 points so far this year.
Wow.
And you're telling me the Browns and Chargers game over under is 42 and a half? I mean, I'm going to ride with that trend. Chargers under has won me a lot of weekends whenever the NFL has screwed me over on some games. Chargers under, Chargers Browns under 42 and a half. That is the play. It is easy. This game will be terrible. It will be similar to that Saints Chargers game last week when it was 5-3 at halftime or end of the first quarter, something like that. It will be terrible. So you just bet the under on this game. You don't watch it, but you check your phone. You're like, yep, that's as terrible as I think it is. Okay, good. I'm going to win money on it. Take the under there, folks. But that is going to do it for this NFL episode of the Bold Take podcast. Thank you for joining us. Obviously, go watch college football if you haven't already. Great talking points there. College football playoff rankings coming out Tuesday. We're going to talk all about that next week. NFL trade deadlines Tuesday. Are we going to see it like it was 2 years ago? Or is it going to be a quiet deadline like last year in the NFL? It'll be interesting to see. We're going to talk all about it for you next week. But that's going to be it for this week. I'm Austin Wader. That's Austin Hill. We want to thank you for watching.